A vast cliff face flashes past in the dark, and a young falcon drops from the nest with hunger burning in its chest. The air hits its wings like a command, and from that moment on, everything is survival. Born on a high ledge above the mountain valleys of North America, the chick begins life blind, weak, and outmatched by its own siblings. The nest is only sticks, grass, and exposed sky, but it is enough to hold the first struggle: food, space, and the right to be fed. The older chicks always win first. They lift their heads faster, cry louder, and shove harder, while the smallest one waits in the shadow of moving wings and torn meat. But waiting is not the same as surrender. The smallest chick learns to catch what falls, to move before the others notice, to survive on scraps when the larger mouths take the best pieces. In a world where every meal is contested, even a single mouthful can decide who lasts long enough to see the next day. As the weeks pass, the nest begins to shrink around the body that fills it. The down turns to feathers, the eyes open fully, and the cliff edge becomes impossible to ignore. Below is nothing but distance, stone, and air. Above is the constant return of the parents, arriving with prey held tight in their talons, tearing it apart with ruthless precision, feeding the strongest first while the smallest watches and waits for a chance. The nest is not gentle. It is a school built from hunger. Every shove teaches balance. Every missed meal teaches timing. Every hard lesson shapes a bird that cannot afford hesitation. Then comes the first leap. No hesitation, no safety, no promise of success. Just a body stepping off the edge because hunger leaves no other choice. The young falcon opens its wings and the sky answers too fast. The first descent is clumsy, violent, almost humiliating. The bird spins, drifts, crashes against rock, and tumbles through loose stones until pain becomes part of the lesson. But the lesson matters more than the bruise. The body learns to catch air, the wings learn to work together, and the cliff that once felt like the end becomes the beginning of something larger. The parents still bring food, but now the meals come in the open, on ledges and rocks and slopes where the young bird must drag itself forward to claim them. Nothing is given freely. Even survival has to be earned from the ground up. At 3 months old, the falcon is no longer a helpless chick. It can cross open space, ride rising air, and carve its way through the valley with growing confidence. But confidence is not mastery. The first hunts are failures. A dive comes in too steep, too early, too late. A strike misses by inches, then by body lengths. Birds scatter, branches break. Dirt explodes under the impact of a bad angle. Each failure leaves the hunter more alert, more exact, more patient. The sky punishes mistakes without mercy, and prey survives by recognizing the difference between a rushed hunter and a dangerous one. Only when the falcon finally times a dive perfectly, when talons close around a small bird in the split second before escape, does the meaning of hunting change. That first kill is messy, raw, and unforgettable. It is not just food, it is proof. The falcon is no longer only learning how to fly, it is learning how to take life from the air. By 10 months, the sky has become a territory worth defending. Another young falcon appears near the cliffs, bold enough to challenge the space that has been claimed through blood, speed, and countless hours of flight. The warning call is sharp, but warnings mean little in a world built around competition. The chase begins at once. 2 bodies plunging toward the same prey. 2 sets of talons reaching for the same prize. One bird strikes first, the other slams in from the side, and the prey escapes while the fighters collide in open air. Feather strikes follow, talons flash. For a few brief moments, the sky itself seems to tighten around them. Then the intruder breaks away and vanishes over the ridge. The territory remains, but only for now. The lesson is clear. possession is never permanent, and speed means nothing if someone else is willing to hit harder. At 2 years old, something changes. A female falcon appears near the hunting grounds, and unlike the others, she is not just a rival in the sky. She is precise, efficient, and unafraid of the same open spaces that shape the male's life. He brings her proof of his skill, and she studies him without retreating. Over time, they hunt in the same valleys, reading each other's movements, matching dives, measuring courage against instinct. Then one day, high above the cliffs, they perform the same tight aerial roll, each bird mirroring the other in a display that is part challenge, part trust, part invitation. There is no need for words. The cliff face becomes their home. An old nesting ledge is cleaned out, scraped bare, and claimed again. What began as competition becomes partnership. What began as hunger becomes the beginning of a family. And then the nest holds chicks, small, open-mouthed, fragile creatures that do nothing but beg. Their world is simpler than the one their parents know, but no less ruthless. Food must arrive, or they fail. Threats must be seen early, or they are lost. The adults trade hunting and guarding in relentless shifts, tearing apart pigeons, doves, and smaller birds, carrying food back to the ledge, feeding one chick, then another, then hunting again before the shadows can settle. A raven circles too close, and the adults drive it off together in a blur of wings and rage. The chicks survive not because the world is kind, but because two hunters have turned their lives into a wall around them. Every successful return to the nest is a victory against the cold, against hunger, against the endless things that want to steal a life before it has begun. But time changes everything. By 9 years old, the falcon is no longer the fastest thing in the valley. The body is still deadly, but it does not recover as quickly. The dives lose a little sharpness. The wings need more effort. Prey that once seemed easy now slips away more often, and younger birds begin to pass overhead with the kind of speed that belongs to youth alone. The falcon still hunts, still feeds itself, still survives by choosing easier targets and smarter angles, but every flight costs more than it once did. This is the hidden law of the sky. Strength fades slowly, then suddenly, and the bird that once dominated the air must now measure every chase with care. Survival becomes less about brilliance and more about efficiency, less about force and more about knowing when not to waste energy. By 10, the end is already moving in. The falcon lands on the ground to feed from what looks like an easy meal, only to feel the world collapse from above. A red-tailed hawk strikes with brutal force, driving the falcon into the dirt and pinning it there with crushing weight. The struggle is brief, desperate, and useless. Old reflexes fire, but the body no longer answers with the speed it once had. Wings twitch. Legs fail. Breath shortens. The hawk releases the body and turns to the food, leaving the defeated bird in the dust, as if it were already part of the landscape. There is no grand end, no final battle, no heroic escape. Just stillness, just the slow arrival of insects, the final quiet of a body that can no longer rise, and the cold certainty that every hunter eventually becomes vulnerable to a stronger one. That is the life of a falcon, born in competition, shaped by gravity, sharpened by failure, and measured by the sky itself. From the first scrap of food in the nest to the final fall in the dirt, every stage is defined by one truth. To live above the cliffs, you do not get to be gentle. You have to learn to leap before you are ready, strike before you are certain, and keep flying long after your body starts telling you to stop. The sky rewards precision, punishes hesitation, and never remembers the birds it leaves behind. The hunt never really ends. Even when the body weakens, the sky keeps moving, and every shadow below can still become dinner or death. By the time the falcon grows older, the valley no longer feels like a kingdom. It feels like a map of remembered victories. The same cliffs where it once dominated the air now echo with other wings, younger wings, faster wings, wings that do not yet understand how quickly time can take everything back. The bird still patrols the ridges at dawn, still scans the ground with that sharp, unblinking focus, still turns its head at the slightest flicker of movement. But the dives are different now. They are slower, heavier, less certain at the edges. The body knows what to do, but it no longer does it with the same violence. The gap between intention and action grows wider, and in that gap, prey escapes. That is what age really does in the wild. It does not arrive with warning signs. It arrives in the form of a missed strike, a late turn, a breath that takes longer to recover, a wing beat that feels just a little more expensive than the last one. One day, the falcon notices that the same rabbit, the same duck, the same sparrow that once would have been easy now demands more from the body than it used to. The sky has not changed, but the hunter has, and that is enough. Still, hunger does not care about weakness. So the falcon keeps moving. It drifts over the river, where the light breaks in silver strips across the water. It crosses the open fields where small birds gather low in the grass. It circles the broken rocks where the wind rises from the slope and lifts the wings without asking permission. It searches not for the hardest prey, but for the smartest chance. A tired bird, a distracted one, something isolated, something slow. Because once speed begins to fade, intelligence becomes the last weapon that matters. The old falcon no longer wins by force, it wins by patience, but even patience has limits. One morning, after a long glide above the cliffs, the falcon folds its wings and drops toward a bird moving through the grass. The angle is imperfect, the body is a fraction too high, the line a fraction too wide. The prey reacts instantly, vanishing into the reeds before the talons can close. The falcon pulls up hard and feels the strain run through its chest. Another missed meal. Another reminder that the sky is becoming less forgiving. Below, the young birds keep flying. Their dives are cleaner. Their turns are tighter. Their hunger is louder. And they do not know yet what the older bird already knows, that every survivor is only temporary. The cliffs remain the same, though. The stone, the wind, the narrow ledges where generations have rested, fed, fought, and raised their young. The falcon returns there because old places hold old memories, and memory is one of the last comforts left to a creature with fewer seasons ahead than behind. The perch feels familiar under its feet. The air still smells like dust and feathers and sun-warmed rock. From here, the valley opens wide, and everything the bird has ever fought for seems to lie beneath it in layers of distance. There was a time when the nest was the center of the world. There was a time when every meal was a struggle against siblings, every flight a crash, every kill a revelation. There was a time when the bird learned that surviving one more day was not enough, because to remain alive in the sky meant becoming better, sharper, colder, and faster than the world expected. It learned to beg, then to hunt, then to defend, then to mate, then to raise life, then to watch the same young life disappear into the air. It learned that power is temporary, that territory is borrowed, and that even the strongest wings grow tired in the end. And still the falcon lifts its head, because that is the only answer the sky ever respects. One last gust passes over the cliff, pressing against its feathers, testing what remains. The bird spreads its wings and feels the familiar pull of the wind underneath them. Not the effortless strength of youth, not the blazing violence of its prime, but enough. Enough to rise. Enough to glide. Enough to remember what it once was. The valley below waits in silence, full of motion it cannot stop and hunger it cannot satisfy. Somewhere out there, another hunter circles. Somewhere out there, another life begins its own brutal climb toward the edge. And above all of it, the sky stays open, indifferent, and endless.